The intern dumped tea on me in public and shouted, "My husband is the president." I calmly dialed my husband's number. "Come to the chairman's office. Your new wife is running wild on my head." She froze on the spot. "Ji Shuran, do you understand what you're saying? This cup of tea is prepared for you, Chuan. What right do you have to reach out and grab it?" A shrill scream echoed in the Qin Group's 36th floor conference room. Before I could react, a wave of scalding heat trickled down my temples. Tea leaves from the Bai Luo Chun stuck to my lashes. The tea soaked the collar of my silk shirt. The burning sensation mingled with the tea's bitterness, instantly waking me up. I wiped the water off my face and, through blurred vision, looked at the girl in front of me. Her name is Lin Xiaoye, an intern who had joined the company only half a month ago. Now she stood with one hand on her hip, gripping an empty purple clay teacup. Her pure and pretty face was marked with an age inappropriate swagger. The conference room fell as silent as death. The head of the administrative department, Liu, turned pale, with folders on the ground. She trembled as she exclaimed, "Lin Xiaoye, are you crazy? Do you know who she is?" "I don't care who she is, an airborne nominal director who's always giving orders, acting like she owns the place." Lin Xiaoye sneered, her eyes full of mockery. "I'm not afraid to tell you I have a backer. I married Qin Yuchuan, the president of this company. If you dare to cause me trouble at the weekly report meeting today, I'll make you appear from this company tomorrow." I sat quietly in the main seat, feeling the water droplets on my hair patting on the back of my hand. "Qin Yuchuan, my husband of 5 years. The Qin Group is the result of our joint efforts from scratch. In the toughest times, I leveraged all the connections of the Ji family to secure financing for him. To safeguard his absolute authority in the company, I stepped back behind the scenes and participated in management discreetly under the title of Director Ji. But I never imagined that on our own territory, a so-called president's wife would pour tea on me." Supervisor Liu rushed over to help wipe it off, but I waved her back. "You just said Qin Yuchuan is your husband?" I asked in a calm tone, with no sign of anger. "Got scared." Lin Xiaoye thought I was yielding, and her arrogance grew. "Yuchuan said he hates strong women in the workplace the most. What good is a grown woman like you? Even if you climb to the director position, you still can't even taste your tea properly. I advise you to apologize right now, or when Yuchuan finishes the meeting and comes back, don't expect to be able to stay in Jiangcheng." The surrounding colleagues looked at each other in astonishment. The senior employees already showed a look of pity. They only knew that I was the director. Except for a few loyalists around Qin Yuchuan, no one knew I was the chairman. I sneered in anger. So in Lin Xiaoye's mouth, the type Qin Yuchuan favors is this kind of gentle little thing. In front of her, I slowly pulled. I took out my personal phone. The lock screen wallpaper showed a photo of Qin Yuchuan and me skiing in Switzerland last year. Lin Xiaoye, who was nearby, clearly saw it. Her face stiffened slightly, but she quickly comforted herself. "Nice picture skills. You even dare to fake a joint photo." I ignored her taunts, directly dialed the top priority number, and pressed the speaker. After 2 rings, it was answered. Qin Yuchuan's deep, magnetic voice came from the earpiece, carrying a hint of fatigue and indulgence. "Raren, why are you calling at this moment? I'm looking at next quarter's report." Lin Xiaoye's face instantly turned ashen. She opened her mouth but dared not utter a sound. I calmly looked at her and said word for word, "Qin Yuchuan, come to the chairman's office on the 36th floor. Your new wife has already stepped on my head and is making a scene. If you're even later, I'm afraid this face of mine will be burned red." The silence on the other end was deathly still for 5 seconds. Then the sound of a chair tipping over and hurried footsteps came through. "Raren, what are you talking about? Who's there? Are you hurt?" I hung up immediately. Lin Xiaoye stiffened completely. The purple clay teacup in her hand crashed to the ground and broke into several fragments. She stared at me, her lips trembling. "You're the chairman." "Impossible." Yuchuan clearly said the Qin family is his own. His wife is obviously an old woman who's hidden at home and wouldn't be brought out. I finished the sentence for her. "And I am that old woman." I stood up, took off my soaking silk jacket and tossed it into the trash. The camisole beneath outlined the lines built up from years of fitness. Although I was already 30, I was not the kind of exhausted old woman she described. I walked up to Lin Xiaoye. She instinctively backed away, but I grabbed her by the collar. "Lin Xiaoye, 22 years old, graduate of Hale University. Your resume is fake, you're even buying your English Level 4 certificate. I fixed my gaze on her eyes and spoke softly. When Qin Yuchuan brought you into the company, he said you were the sister of his lifesaver and asked me to take care of you more. It seems his care went pretty deep. You're surveilling me, Lin Xiaoya cried out guiltily. I chose every tile in this company. Do I need to monitor you? I sneered at that moment. The door of the conference room was forcefully pushed open. Qin Yuchuan burst in, panting. His suit and tie were somewhat askew. Clearly, he had run all the way. When he saw my swollen forehead and the tea-stained floor, his pupils suddenly contracted and he exclaimed, "Ranan." He stepped forward quickly to touch my face, but I turned my head to avoid him. Yuchuan, Lin Xiaoya, as if seeing a savior, suddenly pulled away from my grasp and threw herself into his embrace, crying out, "You have to save me. This woman is bullying me and said she would fire me." Boo-hoo. Qin Yuchuan froze on the spot, his hands awkwardly hanging in mid-air. He glanced at my icy gaze, then at Lin Xiaoya in his arms, drenched in sorrow, and his voice trembled. "Xiao Yu, let go first. Ruren, listen to my explanation. Things aren't what you think." I crossed my arms, calmly surveying the two of them, who seemed like a perfect match. "Mr. Qin isn't in a hurry to explain. Why not clarify in front of everyone what exactly is this husband that this Miss Lin is talking about? Has she acted too deeply, or did you privately arrange some kind of entry into the palace for her?" The gazes of dozens of employees around him were fixed on Qin Yuchuan. His face turned from red to white, then to green, with an astonishingly dramatic change. He opened his mouth, only to find that all his excuses were suddenly pale and powerless. His hand hung in mid-air for a moment, then finally dropped dejectedly. He did not push Lin Xiaoya away, but he dared not meet my eyes again. Suddenly, he turned his head and directed at the on-looking employees. "What are you all standing here for? Are you not going to work anymore?" His voice was very loud, as if trying to recover the president's authority and hide the embarrassment on his face. Manager Liu reacted first, hurriedly dragging and pulling the subordinates who had craned their necks to watch outside. In less than a minute, the spacious conference room was left with only the three of us. Lin Xiaoya cried even harder at the scene, curling up beside Qin Yuchuan. Her pale, delicate fingers tightly clutched the sleeve of his suit, intermittently saying, "Yuchuan, she's bullying me," and she sighed. "KPI. Yuchuan, since you feel oppressed being with me and think that I'm like a machine, then let's take a break from each other." I turned around and called to the security guard outside the door, "Take Miss Lin to the HR department and process her resignation immediately, on the grounds of maliciously harming a company executive. As for the false resume, the legal department will follow up to see if it involves contract fraud." "You dare!" Lin Xiaoya charged forward to grab my face, but two security guards were quick and twisted her arms, dragging her outside. Lin Xiaoya struggled and shouted at Qin Yuchuan, "Yuchuan, say something, save me, you've said I'm the woman you love the most." Qin Yuchuan stood there like a wooden statue, even taking a step back instinctively when Lin Xiaoya was dragged away, afraid of being implicated. This kind of man is selfish to the core. The room finally became quiet. I walked to the main seat, sat down, looked at Qin Yuchuan, and pointed to the chair opposite. "Sit." Qin Yuchuan sat stiffly, his hands clenched together. "Raran, those words from Xiao Yu were really nonsense. I'm sincere about you. Those money and the house were only to repay a debt. I was afraid you'd misunderstand, so I didn't tell you." "Enough, Qin Yuchuan. Do you still want to treat me like a fool at this point?" I calmly pulled out a document from my bag that was the surprise we planned to give him for our 5th anniversary next Friday. A share transfer letter of intent. I had intended to transfer part of the core. I gave the shares that belonged to me to him so that he would truly become the rightful head of the Qin family. In front of him, I tore that document into fragments, and the shredded pieces fell like snow onto the desk. "Qin Yuchuan, from today on, I will reclaim all the permissions I granted you. You will suspend your duties as CEO for the time being and go home to reflect." "You want to suspend my duties?" Qin Yuchuan stood up abruptly, his eyes full of reluctance. "Ji Shuran, you can't do this. I am your husband. How can you do this in front of the whole company? Where am I supposed to put my face?" I touched the bulge already raised on my forehead. That's what his savior smashed it with the purple clay cup he gave. Have you ever considered my face when you indulged Lin Xiaoye in running the company rampantly? I stand up, pick up my bag, and prepare to leave. Raran, he calls after me. Xiaoyu, she's pregnant with my child. You can't be this cruel. My steps stall. In that moment, my heart feels tightly cinched by fine threads, squeezing hard. I slowly turn my head, looking at the familiar yet unfamiliar man, a sardonic arc curling at the corner of my mouth. Is that so? Then fine. Since you want a family so much, I'll grant you that. As I exit the conference room, the outside sunlight stings my eyes. I don't cry. I just feel like these 5 years of youth have been turned into an absurd dream. The news of Lin Xiaoye's pregnancy needles into my softest spot with deadly precision. I returned to the office, closed the door and slumped back against the chair in exhaustion. For 5 years, Qin Yuchuan had been saying that we were still young, that the company was on the rise, and there was no rush to have children. I naively thought this was considerate, but I didn't realize he only wanted to wait for another woman to help him spread his wings. I took a deep breath and dialed Secretary Annie's number. Annie, help me check 2 things. First, Lin Xiaoye's medical records from the last 3 months. I need concrete proof of pregnancy. Second, look into Qin Yuchuan's private accounts over the past 6 months, especially all expenditures related to that apartment in Yunlu. After half an hour, Annie came in with a troubled look. President G, I've found something. She placed several printed invoices and photos in front of me. Lin Xiaoye did visit a gynecology department, but according to medical insurance records, she went for tubal ligation counseling. As for pregnancy, there is no report confirming gestation in the current appointment records. It's very likely that was her way of stoking Qin's interest with a smoke bomb she threw out. I sneered. This girl is not only arrogant but clearly calculating as well. And also, President G, look at these accounts. Annie pointed to several enormous sums. President Qin not only bought her luxury goods, but as recently as 3 months ago, through a shell company, he transferred 3 million yuan into Lin Xiaoye's private account, nominally as project consulting fees, but that project is quotes completely fictitious. I stared at the figure of 3 million, my fingertips turning cold. Qin Yuchuan not only had an emotional affair, he had long since brazenly transferred assets, which are our joint property. 3 million might not be a huge amount for him, but it is a dangerous signal. He is leaving a back door for himself or building a nest for Lin Xiaoye. Call old Zhong from the Legal Affairs Department and the Chief Financial Officer. I want to audit all the reimbursement documents Lin Xiaoye handled. I stood up and rearranged my disheveled hair. Since he wanted to play for high stakes, I would play along to the end. I didn't go home but headed straight to Lin Xiaoye's Yunlu residence. This apartment was originally bought because I was worried about Qin Yuchuan working long hours and wanted to give him a surprise, a place near his company. Now it has become the love nest of his mistress. When I swiped the card to enter, Lin Xiaoye was wearing my silk robe, lounging on the sofa, and eating bird's nest. When she saw me, her hand trembled, and the delicate porcelain bowl shattered on the expensive carpet, with the bird's nest splashing everywhere. How did you get in? Her face turned pale, even forgetting to put on an act. This is my house. Tell me how I got in. I walked over and looked down at her. Lin Xiaoye, you keep saying Qin Yuchuan loves you, yet you're living in a place that doesn't rightfully belong to you. Lin Xiaoye quickly regained her composure, straightened her belly, and smiled provocatively. Ji Shulan, so what if the house is yours, the man Yuchuan is mine, his heart is mine, and we even have a child? You can guard these cold properties for a lifetime. Sooner or later, he'll divorce you and take away half of your family assets. Half of the family assets? I seem to hear a huge joke. Lin Xiaoye, you probably haven't figured out the equity structure of the Qin Group. Qin Yuchuan only holds 15% of the shares, and most of that is restricted by a prenuptial agreement and a gambling agreement. As long as I file for divorce and submit evidence of his illegal embezzlement during the marriage, not only will he get no money, he will have to walk away with nothing, and he might even face criminal liability. Lin Xiaoye's smile stiffened. You're talking nonsense. Qin Yuchuan said he is the boss, the president. I am the chairman. He is just a worker. I am the one who pays the salaries. I bent down, staring at her greed-filled eyes. As for the child in your belly, I have already checked the hospital records, Miss Lin. To use such a pathetic lie to deceive Qin Yuchuan, that kind of sentimental animal might be fooled. But with me, you don't even have a chance. Her face turned pale in an instant, and the exposed guilty conscience made her tremble all over. What are you going to do? Originally I intended to send you in directly. I stood up gracefully and clapped my hands. But then I thought, rather than letting you go to prison, you should see this. The man you cling to so desperately, after losing wealth and power, will he still truly love you? I took out my phone and, in her presence, texted Qin Yuchuan, if you want to save Lin Xiaoye, come back to the old house in half an hour. As I stepped out of the apartment, Lin Xiaoye collapsed onto the sofa behind me in a dejected, limp heap. As night deepened, I drove back to our post-wedding residence, where Qin Yuchuan was already waiting for. He looked utterly dispirited, devoid of the usual aura of a sharp, successful executive. Ruren, I know I'm wrong. He rushed up to me as soon as he saw me. I was momentarily bewitched. I truly never meant to hurt you. That 3 million, I did it for her brother's sake. Shut up, Qin Yuchuan. I sat on the main seat of the sofa, reviewing a contract that held no value. You can put away your savior script. I've already contacted the traffic police and the party involved who handled the case back then. Your savior back then wasn't Lin Xiaoye's brother at all. That was just a money-making lie. Lin Xiaoye merely learned of your heartache through channels and deliberately set up a plan to get close to you. Qin Yuchuan was struck by lightning, rooted in place, and after a long moment found his voice. Impossible. She has the medal from that time, and a photo of her brother. Those are all things she found at a junk market and online. I slapped an investigation report in his face. Qin Yuchuan, you not only betrayed your marriage but also betrayed your intelligence. For a liar, you even want to hollow out our company. Qin Yuchuan trembled as he opened the report. The evidence was irrefutable, exposing Lin Xiaoye's true nature. His face paled from green to purple, finally turning gray. I give you 2 choices. I looked at him coldly. First, go with me to transfer the company's shares as a gift and then go to the Civil Affairs Bureau to agree to a divorce. You can take your meager personal savings and get lost. Second, I'll file a report for the financial embezzlement of that 3 million, so you and Lin Xiaoye can be partners in prison. Qin Yuchuan looked up at me, his eyes full of fear and struggle. In the face of life and death situations and absolute interests, his so-called true love seemed ridiculous. I choose the first option. The next morning, I arrived at the company with the lawyers and the audit team on site. The internal uproar at the Qin Group had long spread. Employees looked at me with reverence, while the gazes toward the president's office carried curiosity and contempt. I did not announce the divorce publicly right away because I knew Qin Yuchuan would not let things rest easily. Mr. G, this is Lin Xiaoye, the director of finance. Laro Chen placed a thick stack of documents in front of me with a grave expression. Besides the 3 million yuan, she also used Mr. Qin's signing authority to privately handle several fake supplier contracts, with a total implicated amount exceeding 5 million. 5 million. This was no longer merely a violation of discipline, it was a crime. I skimmed through those flawed contracts. Lin Xiaoye indeed wasn't very smart, but every word Qin Yuchuan signed on them felt like needles stabbing my heart. He could see the flaws, yet he was conniving, feeding his affair with the company's flesh and blood. At that moment, the office door was forcefully kicked open. Lin Xiaoye hadn't left yet. She somehow showed up in a luxury fur coat, strutting in with her head held high. Ji Shuran, don't think you can scare me with a few scraps of paper. She slammed a lab report down on my desk. Take a good look. This is the morning's test result. We're 6 weeks pregnant with Yuchuan's child. If you dare move against me, the Qin family elders won't spare you, and Yuchuan won't either. I glanced over that list. The red seal on it was indeed real. It seems that in order to turn the tables, she went to a private clinic. Last night, I put down the pen in my hand and looked at her calmly. Lin Xiaoye, have you forgotten? Qin Yuchuan's parents passed away as far back as 3 years ago. The only one who can control his elders in this world is me, the chairman with the authority to make company decisions. As for this child, I laughed at myself, then looked toward the door. Qin Yuchuan, since you've come, deal with it yourself. Qin Yuchuan walked out of the lounge with a grim face he had been listening in. There just now, seeing him appear, Lin Xiaoye first brightened up. Then pounced to grab his hand. Yuchuan, did you hear? I have a baby, we have a child. You must tell her that you want to marry me and have her return all the shares to you. Slap, a crisp slap echoed through the office. Lin Xiaoye's head turned, and she covered her face in disbelief. You hit me, the child. Who knows whose brat this is? Qin Yuchuan, at this moment, was like a trapped beast. His eyes red, he was terrified that I would actually report him and ruin his reputation. Lin Xiaoye, you liar, you fabricated that the savior's identity was used to deceive me, and now you want to trap me with a child. I tell you, I've already had the lawyer recover that 3 million. You'd better leave Jiangcheng at once. Qin Yuchuan, you wimp, Lin Xiaoye screamed hysterically. You told me Ji Shuren can't produce eggs. You said you were tired of her dead fish face long ago. You begged me to have a son for you. Now that something has happened, you shift all the blame onto me. I sat in the head seat, coldly watching this man and woman fight with each other. These words, though harsh, completely cut off my thoughts about Qin Yuchuan. Turns out in his heart, all my years of hard work and companionship are only worth the judgments of unable to have a child and dead fish face. Enough, I tapped the desk lightly. It wasn't loud, but it instantly quieted the two. Lin Xiaoye, I've reported the 5 million financial shortfall to the legal department. If you can repay 3 million to the company within 24 hours and sign this voluntary resignation and waiver of compensation agreement, I can consider not handing you over to the judicial authorities. I turned to Qin Yuchuan. As for you, President Qin, the equity transfer agreement is already drafted. You go out with nothing but your reputation intact, and I'll protect you from any damage to your name. Do you want to make this deal? Qin Yuchuan stared at the agreement intently, the veins on the back of his hand standing out. He knew once he signed, the once adored young talent of Jiangcheng would become an unnamed figure relying on his ex-wife Afi's charity. Raran, do you have to be so absolute about this? His voice was hoarse, with a hint of pleading. Absurd. I pointed to the scabbed wound on my forehead. When this cup of tea was spilled, you should have expected there would be a day like this. Qin Yuchuan, my mercy is for my family, not for traitors. Lin Xiaoye sensed trouble and suddenly rushed toward the floor-to-ceiling window, shouting at the top of her lungs, Ji Shuran, you drove me to my death. I'll jump down here with my child and see how you can still be the chairman. I want the whole company to know that you are a poisoner who killed a pregnant woman. From the height of the 36th floor, the howling wind carried a chill. I remained unmoved and softly said to Annie, call the police. Say someone is creating trouble at the company and is suspected of embezzling a huge sum from their position. Since Miss Lin wants to make a scene, let the police and the media come and see who is really committing the crime. Hearing the word call the police, Lin Xiaoye, who was gripping the window frame, collapsed. Her arrogant aura instantly dissipated. Such people fear losing their pampered life the most, and fear prison even more. I pushed the gold pen in front of Qin Yuchuan and said, sign. Qin Yuchuan looked at my icy gaze and finally realized that the person who once stayed up all night to take care of him when he had stomach pains had long since died in yesterday's cup of spilled hot tea. He trembled as he took the pen and signed his name at the end of the agreement. Get lost. I collected the agreement without even glancing at them. Lin Xiaoyao still wanted to say something, but Qin Yuchuan violently dragged him out of the office. Outside, the staff's hushed whispers could be heard. Those admiring looks that had once been cast toward them had now turned into sharp needles. I collapsed into my chair, my heart tightening in waves. I had one, but it felt as though my heart had been hollowed out. Annie came near softly. General G. The finance department found that before General Qin signed the transfer agreement, he secretly diverted the next quarter's R&D reserve funds, a substantial amount, to Lin Xiaoyao's private account. It seems he wanted to leave a way out for that woman. I sneered. Qin Yuchuan, you think this is to save her? It's clearly driving her to a dead end. Inform the legal department to file a formal lawsuit against Lin Xiaoyao. I closed my eyes. Since he wanted to play the romantic lead, I'll keep it for him to act as when visiting me in prison that night. The wind in Jiangcheng was strong. I sat on the old house's balcony, pinching the active divorce agreement in my hand. Qin Yuchuan hadn't left quietly as promised. Instead, on the night he was driven out of the company, he appeared at my parents' door. With Lin Xiaoye, he knelt in the living room, tears in his eyes, accusing me of cold-heartedness, saying I was about to ruin his career and family over a misunderstanding, even framing me as a thief who would ruin the pregnant woman tries to seize property. When I arrived, my mother's hands trembled with anger. She pointed at Qin Yuchuan but couldn't scold him properly. Lin Xiaoye hid behind him, her eyes red, looking frail and wronged. Ji Shuran, you've finally shown up. Qin Yuchuan glanced at me as I entered, with a look of desperate insanity in his eyes. Our parents are here. Do you want to make it clear in front of the elders, or are you just going to crush me? The baby Lin Xiaoye is carrying is innocent, and you're trying to wipe out even the descendants of the Qin family. I let out a cold laugh. I didn't bother to go inside and stood in the doorway instead. Qin Yuchuan, where did you get the nerve to talk about descendants? You embezzled 3 million yuan and transferred it to Lin Xiaoye. I've already frozen it through the Legal Affairs Department, and the Economic Investigation Unit should be on the way. Lin Xiaoye's face turned as white as paper, and she suddenly grabbed Qin Yuchuan's arm. What did you say? Frozen? That's the support I need for the rest of my life. Qin Yuchuan was stunned and looked at me in disbelief. Ji Shuran, you're chasing even that money. That's child support. Child support for a liar. The Qin family won't pay this money. I took my phone from my bag and played a recording. It was Lin Xiaoye in the afternoon in the office, screaming hysterically at Qin Yuchuan. You said Ji Shuran can't have eggs. You begged me to have your son. The recording echoed through the silent living room. Every word like a slap landed across Qin Yuchuan's face, shattering the last bit of my parents' tolerance for him. Father stood up abruptly, grabbed a teacup on the table, and slammed it to the ground at his feet. Get out. Take your vixen and get out. The biggest mistake of the Ji family in this generation was trusting a heartless, despicable thing like you. Qin Yuchuan was completely stunned. He had thought that by exploiting the elders' soft-heartedness and their concern for heirs, he could force me to back down, at least to protect that 3 million and his dignity. But he underestimated my resolve. Ran, are you really going to be so heartless? He swayed as he stood, with despair in his eyes. 5 years, and you have no old feelings to cherish at all. I looked at him. My eyes were a bit sore, but my voice remained calm. Qin Yuchuan, when I started the business, I slept on the office floor for 3 consecutive months, and I ended up with a back problem. You said you would guard me for a lifetime, never letting me suffer any injustice. And what happened? You protected another woman and let her pour hot tea on my face. Your love is too cheap. Ji Shuran can't afford you. At that moment, the sound of police sirens came from outside. Lin Xiaoye let out a scream and turned to run toward the back window, but the arriving bodyguards pinned her to the ground. Lin Xiaoye is suspected of embezzlement and large-scale fraud. Please come with us. The arriving police officers showed their badges with solemn expressions. Lin Xiaoye struggled and cried, Yuchuan, save me, please help me. In a fit of emotion, she suddenly covered her abdomen, her face ashen. She collapsed to the floor, groaning in pain. My stomach hurts. Qin Yuchuan instinctively tried to move forward, but I, quick-witted and resolute, stopped him. If it hurts, then take her to the hospital first. The police will accompany us the entire way. I calmly directed things. Then I turned to the police and said, Officer, if you would please. I also want to know whether the child who makes President Qin willing to risk his entire family is even real. Half an hour later, in the hospital corridor, I, Qin Yuchuan, and 2 police officers stood quietly outside the emergency room. Qin Yuchuan slumped on the bench, his hands buried in his hair, looking like he had aged 10 years. The doctor pushed the door open, removed his mask, and spoke coldly. The patient is not seriously ill, it's just emotional agitation causing mild contractions. He shot Qin Yuchuan a glance, with a hint of oddity in his eyes, and added, but the patient isn't actually pregnant. What's claimed to be an embryo in her uterus is a detachable, simulated gestational sac model. This method is common in illegal clinics, used to defraud insurance or marriage. With a loud bang, Qin Yuchuan slid from the chair to the floor, staring blankly at the doctor, muttering to himself, fake, all fake. The test results were forged, and pregnancy symptoms could be induced with medicine. He finally understood. I walked up to him, looking down at him as if he were a complete joke. Qin Yuchuan, you claimed you betrayed me for the sake of their offspring, but in truth, you were merely someone else's stepping stone. Qin Yuchuan suddenly burst into frantic laughter, with tears streaming from his eyes. He got up and rushed into the emergency room, wildly shouting at Lin Xiaoye on the hospital bed. I simply turned away and walked toward the hospital lobby. Outside, the rain had stopped, and the air carried the scent of soil. The fast surrounding Lin Xiaoye and Qin Yuchuan ended as the police car drove away. Lin Xiaoye was formally arrested on charges of embezzlement in the line of duty and fraud. The 5 million yuan in evidence formed an extremely solid chain, added to the fact that she had attempted to induce Qin Yuchuan to transfer assets with a fake pregnancy. It constituted attempted fraud. She awaits a long life behind iron bars. It's said that in the detention center, she curses Qin Yuchuan every day, calling him a useless fool, unable to guard even the last bit of money. As for Qin Yuchuan, although not indicted, he had already become completely stinky in Jiang City's social circle. After the share transfer agreement took effect, I did not spare him a shred of face, speaking publicly as chairman to the entire industry, detailing his embezzlement of funds during his tenure and his indulgence of family members, even if only nominally, in disrupting the company's order. In business, credibility is everything. Qin Yuchuan's behavior of living off others while burning the boats directly crossed the bottom line of all partners, those friends who once surrounded him, calling themselves brothers. None of them failed to blacklist his contact information on the day he left with nothing. 3 months after the divorce, I ran into him once at a convenience store near the company. The President Qin, who used to wear nothing but custom-made suits and keep every strand of hair in place, now wore a wrinkled street vendor jacket. Clutching a bag of expired bread, he looked a decade older, his back hunched, the light in his eyes completely extinguished, leaving only overwhelming numbness when he saw me stepping off the familiar Rolls Royce. He instinctively tried to dodge, but I called him back. Qin Yuchuan. I paused, my expression calm as if I were looking at a stranger. He turned stiffly, his lips trembling for a long moment before he managed to utter, Ranan, Mr. G. You're doing well now, aren't you? I've always been fine. I looked at him, and inside I felt not a trace of vengeful pleasure, only absurdity. I heard you've been job hunting recently. Is any company willing to hire you? He lowered his head, his voice hoarse. No, no one wants me. As soon as they hear my name, they throw the resume into the shredder. I'm working as a porter in a warehouse now. Who would have thought that Qin Yuchuan, who once ruled the negotiation table, would eventually return to the starting point of his original struggle, exchanging his strength for sustenance? That's good, solid work. I nodded. No, without saying another word, he turned to walk into the company building. That was the last time we met. Later, I heard he could no longer bear the disparity and returned to his hometown in the rural mountains, where his remaining pride might still barely survive in a remote mountain village. On the day Lin Xiaoye was released from prison, because she had already married a hot-tempered farmer in the village, the reunion at the train station turned into another earth-shattering confrontation. Those are stories for another time. To me, they were already the dust of a past life. Now the Qin Group has officially been renamed Shuran Capital. I have dissolved all nepotistic ties related to Qin Yuchuan and brought in a more professional management team. The scar on my body has faded, but I did not undergo laser surgery to erase it completely. It is like a medal, constantly reminding me of the experiences in the war of marriage. Gentleness is for those who deserve it, while clarity is to save oneself. On the weekend I go back to the old house to eat with my parents. The sun spills into the courtyard and my dad is fiddling with his bonsai. My mom is busy in the kitchen. The clatter of utensils rings out and the aroma of the dishes drifts everywhere. Ranan, don't always bury yourself in work, go out and travel once in a while. My mom comes out with the dishes, her eyes filled with cautious concern. Let go of the things in the past, you're still young. There are many days ahead. I smile, take the bowls and chopsticks and take a big gulp of soup. Mom, I'm really free now. I used to think I had to hold up for a family, but I don't have to anymore. I stand by the window looking at the traffic and crowds of Jiangcheng from afar. In this 30-something year, I shook off that terribly rotten husband and found the once radiant me again. End of the full text.